Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a role that has dramatically evolved over the last few decades. We're going to explore the intense, dual responsibilities placed squarely on the shoulders of today's school counselors. You see, this isn't just about handing out college brochures anymore. It's a highly complex balancing act between ensuring immediate physical safety and fighting for long-term systemic advocacy. It's a huge job. So let's dive right into this. When you hear the words school counselor, what immediately comes to mind? For a lot of folks, honestly, the image is kind of stuck in the past. Maybe someone who just sits in an office, scheduling classes and tweaking timetables. But we really need to challenge that outdated perception. The reality of what a modern school counselor actually does on a daily basis is far more critical and often so much more demanding than that. To really understand why the role has shifted so drastically, we have to look at the environment our students are navigating today. Just consider this staggering number. During the 2017 to 2018 school year, public schools across the United States recorded an estimated 1.4 million incidents of violence, theft, or other crimes. 1.4 million. That stark figure proves that our schools, and by extension our counselors, are operating right on the front lines of community safety. Section 1. The Modern School's Safe Haven and Threat Assessment. To proactively prevent threats, we absolutely have to debunk the myth of the typical school shooter. According to comprehensive findings from the FBI and the U.S. Secret Service, there is zero reliable profile of a school shooter. In fact, it's dangerous to rely on a simple checklist of traits. But what they did find is crucial. These attacks are methodically planned. They are not sudden, impulsive acts. Furthermore, in literally 100% of the cases studied, the attackers exhibited disconcerting behavior before the event. 98% had experienced a major loss or failure, and many were victims of severe, long-standing bullying. The warning signs are almost always there, if you know how to look for them. So the crucial question is, what happens when a counselor actually spots those warning signs? Well, enter the Tarasoff ruling. This is a foundational legal doctrine that establishes a duty to warn. It basically means that a counselor's obligation to protect the school community legally overrides a student's right to confidentiality when a danger is foreseeable. If a student makes a credible threat of violence, the counselor must breach confidentiality and alert administration or the authorities. In these cases, safety always supersedes secrecy. Moving on to Section 2, Navigating Hidden School Crises. Now, crises aren't always these highly visible public threats. Behind closed doors, counselors are managing extreme mental health interventions and severe interpersonal issues every single day. Take the Baker Act, for example. It's a mental health law heavily utilized in places like Florida, allowing school resource officers and designated officials to initiate involuntary psychiatric holds for students exhibiting extreme behavior. It was originally meant for imminent threats of death or bodily harm. However, reports from civil rights and pediatric groups highlight a really controversial overuse of this law as a behavioral management tool. Their data suggests this practice disproportionately impacts Black and brown children, as well as children with disabilities, essentially hospitalizing behavior that might be way better addressed through other interventions. Another critical area managed behind closed doors is dating violence. Under Title IX, which is a federal civil rights law, school officials are strictly required to investigate and address sexual harassment and dating violence. This means if a student confides in a counselor about being abused by a dating partner, the counselor cannot promise to keep it a secret. They are legally mandated to report it to the administration to ensure the student's safety and a non-hostile environment, even if that student begs them not to tell a soul. Section 3. Breaking the silence. Counselors know for a fact they cannot act alone. They absolutely need the eyes and ears of the student body to prevent school tragedies. Just look at the data from Colorado's Safe to Tell program during the 2019 to 2020 school year. They received over 20,000 anonymous tips. The top reports were for suicide threats, drugs, and bullying. And out of all those thousands of tips, only 2% were non-actionable false reports. 2%. This really highlights the immense success of anonymous reporting systems. It allows students to share life-saving information without the fear of peer retaliation or being labeled a snitch. All right, Section 4, Disrupting Systemic Barriers. Once immediate physical safety is secured, a counselor's job completely pivots to fighting long-term systemic inequities. It's a huge shift. Let's contrast two very different approaches to school discipline: zero-tolerance policies versus restorative justice. Zero-tolerance policies often mandate strict, exclusionary punishments for infractions, essentially criminalizing minor offenses and pushing students right out of the classroom. On the flip side, restorative justice focuses on community-based support, accountability, and keeping those students actually engaged in their education. And why does this distinction matter so much? Well, the statistics are incredibly sobering. Data from the Council of State Governments shows that zero-tolerance policies directly feed into a juvenile justice system that really struggles with rehabilitation. The highest reported recidivism rate for juvenile offenders is a staggering 76%. That means 76% reoffend, compared to a 24% non-recidivism rate. Pushing students out of school and into the courts often creates a cycle that is just incredibly difficult to break. But systemic barriers aren't just about discipline. They're also about navigating super complex personal and cultural expectations. Consider this really powerful quote from a case study about a student named Arlen. She had the grades for literally any state university, but felt pulled in a completely different direction. She told her counselor, "I will not abandon my family's needs. My place is to care for a family that has always cared for me." She was fully expected to take over the family business instead of pursuing higher education. Talk about a profound ethical dilemma, right? How does a counselor support Arlene's true potential without disrespecting her family? The ethical resolution here is delicate. The counselor must affirm the student's deep-rooted cultural duties and family values, but simultaneously, the counselor has to advocate for Arlene by gently mapping out alternative, flexible educational possibilities. Think part-time classes or local community college options. The goal is ensuring she makes a fully informed choice about her future, without feeling like she has to completely abandon her family to do it. Which brings us to Section 5, Advocating for Every Student. To see exactly why advocating for every student is so incredibly urgent, let's look at the data surrounding rigorous coursework. There are some really stark disparities in 8th grade Algebra 1 enrollment. While they make up a larger percentage of the overall student population, only 10% of Black students and 18% of Latino students are enrolled in this critical gateway course. This data, drawn straight from the source material, proves that systemic gatekeeping isn't just some thing of the past. It is an ongoing, real-time crisis that counselors must actively challenge every day. Advocacy also means finding legal and ethical ways to support some of our most vulnerable populations, like undocumented and DACA students, those who were brought to the U.S. as children. Here are the tangible steps counselors are taking on the ground. Step 1, they ensure the school is a genuine safe haven where students don't fear their information will be shared inappropriately. Step 2, they connect these students to private scholarships, since federal aid is usually off the table. Step 3, they expertly navigate complex state-specific tuition laws to find affordable pathways. And step 4, they provide crucial emotional support regarding the very real, heavy fears of deportation. And look, counselors don't just make up these advocacy rules on the fly. They rely on established professional guidelines. To safely and ethically celebrate diversity and eliminate bias, counselors look to the American School Counselor Association, or ACSA, standards. They use the ASCA student standards to promote empathy and collaboration among peers. They rely on ethical standards to actively work against systemic bias. They make absolutely sure all their advocacy aligns with local school board policies, and they focus firmly on equitable access to a free, appropriate public education for every single youth. And all of this brings us right to a fundamental concept that honestly underscores everything we've discussed today: the difference between equality and equity. Equality means giving everyone the exact same pair of shoes. But equity? Equity means giving everyone a pair of shoes that actually fits them. Equality is giving everyone the exact same support, while equity is doing the hard work to ensure everyone gets the specific, tailored support they need to not just survive in the system, but to truly succeed. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to consider about your own community. Take a really close look at the policies, the discipline data, and the advanced course enrollments in your local districts. Are your schools focused merely on equality, or are they doing the tough, necessary work to achieve true equity? It's a question every single community needs to ask if we want our schools to be true safe havens of opportunity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those tough questions.